Xbox Game Pass is ending its $1 promotional sign-up that they had been doing for a while, and people wanted me to cover this in a live stream, and I really didn't think this was that worthy of discussion, and yet I'm seeing reactions to this announcement that are very, very strange. Even saw somebody saying on Twitter that somebody should be allowed to sort of try out Game Pass before committing to it, which is actually the whole point of Game Pass, is that it's a bargain, it's a great value, you get to try out tons of games without having to buy them, and yet this person is looking at it and even wanting a deal on the deal. I don't really understand this. I don't see this as being that big of a deal, as that big of like news headlines. A lot of people were using this as an opportunity to sort of bash Microsoft and Xbox, saying, oh yeah, the ABK deal is about to go through, and now you're taking this away from people. I thought this ABK deal was going to be good for gamers. I don't think those two are connected in the way that people think they are. Now, maybe Microsoft is preparing for the ABK deal to go through, and if suddenly Game Pass is flooded with more property that's very valuable, it's got a $70 billion price tag on it for Microsoft, they maybe don't want people using this method of signing up for Game Pass for $1. If you're unaware, people were basically doing this over and over and over again. Some people were even figuring out loopholes of, like, I think you would sign up for like Xbox Live or something, and then you could convert it into like years of Game Pass for a whole $1. There was all these loopholes that people were using, and I don't think it's that big of a deal that they've closed down the promotion. I don't think this is an opportunity to really bash on Microsoft or Xbox, but I do think some of the way people are responding is strange. And I've got an article here from The Gamer that says Microsoft ending Xbox's $1 introductory Game Pass offer is a bad sign. And I don't know what this could be a bad sign of. This was an amazing deal for the longest time. They were likely doing this to really help the number of people on Game Pass improve and increase, probably hoping that they would get on Game Pass and never want to get off of it, right? You get people in at a bargain. Television companies and cable companies would always do this, right? They would give you this crazy promo deal, and then you'd forget about it, and then suddenly you're paying for Showtime and HBO and all these extra packages. It's basically a very tried and true marketing strategy, and I actually think Game Pass is one of the best values in gaming. I actually don't think Game Pass is good for the mentality of the consumer. I believe too many consumers are now treating video games as if they're just sort of disposable and throwaway. They're not worth buying. Who buys games? Why would you buy a game? Why would games need their prices to increase? Why would video games keep in step with inflation? If you look at the history of video game pricing, it's virtually been immovable for a very, very long time. I was buying cartridges back in the 90s for what video games cost today, and the size and scope of games have increased 100-fold. I mean, just compare The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time to Breath of the Wild. Like, they're not comparable at all, and one of them's cheaper than the other, and it's Breath of the Wild according to inflation. So I actually don't think Game Pass is good for the mentality of gamers, and we're seeing that. Like, you're actually seeing people respond negatively to this deal going away. Okay, Game Pass is already an absolute bargain, all right? Getting it for $1 is more than a bargain. It's a steal. It's like highway robbery, especially considering people were doing it over and over and over again, which, hey man, good on you if you want to be a frugal consumer to the point that you find loopholes. I've never been a big fan of that. I didn't like the gaming press encouraging people to buy Horizon Forbidden West on the PS4 to save $10. I thought, well, buy it at the full price, right? Support the game, support the devs. They did extra work, extra development time, and bandwidth was spent to add all these features, right? But people are looking at Game Pass and saying, man, I don't even want to pay more than $1 for it. This actually article I view differently than the article views the situation. I view the article as proof positive that this doesn't bode well for Xbox's consumer base and ecosystem. Part of the ABK deal is the FTC wants to see the relationship between subscription service gaming and buy-to-play gaming. They've actually won and got their motion to compel approved, so we may actually get to see the relationship there, and I don't think it's going to be a very good one, and this article is sort of proof of that. So, written here by Tessa Kawar, says Microsoft could replace this with a different marketing scheme, but how long before more drastic measures are taken? What drastic measures don't need to be taken. Just sign up for Game Pass. It's an amazing deal. You do not need a discount on something that's basically already a discount. Like, it's already an amazing bargain. This is shocking to me that people are taking this route. Microsoft announced today that it'll be ending its long-running introductory offer for Game Pass, which allowed users to try out the service for a month for only $1 before moving on to the full price. The deal applied to both Xbox Game Pass Ultimate and PC Game Pass, but has since been pulled for both, meaning new customers can no longer dip their toes into the waters of Game Pass before taking the plunge. Just the verbiage here is insane to me. What do you mean dip their toes before taking the plunge? It's an amazing value. It's like, what, like $10 for a month? Pay 10. What are you buying if you're a gamer and you own a PC or a Series X or a Series S? $10 for just a month to try it out? What in the world? That's not that much money at all. Additionally, the $1 introductory offer was incredibly effective in hooking new members. It certainly got me into PC Game Pass. I was drawn by the idea of a huge library that cost only $1. Who wouldn't be? Then I tried it out and immediately realized that it was very worth the full monthly price. Even if you only play 2 or 3 games a year on the subscription, it's incredible value for the sheer number of titles you have access to, and the range of indies available is incredible. I also know that without that incredibly cheap first month, I likely never would have tried it, since I don't like wasting money on subscriptions I don't end up using. Here's the thing I will say to the author of this article. I think they're making the mistake, Tessa. I believe Tessa is making the mistake of imagining that all consumers are like them. That all consumers thought, hey, this is a great introductory deal, let me try this out, and then they just sort of stay on the subscription service. If everybody was doing this, if large numbers of people were taking advantage of the $1 entrance point and then staying on Game Pass at the normal subscription fee, I would imagine Microsoft would have no incentive to end it. That would be an amazing conversion funnel. That would be fabulous. But I don't think they're keeping it because I don't think that's how people are using it. I think people have been using it and they've been basically gaming the system, all right? I also believe, they continue here, that Game Pass is a huge reason that Xbox sales are still high. While I've been torn between buying an Xbox Series X and a PS5, a big factor tipping me towards Xbox is Game Pass. I don't know if this is playing a factor. I certainly know this is likely a factor for people buying the Series S. If they're sort of like, hey, entrance level cost, I don't like to buy lots of games, or maybe they get the Series S for their kiddos, and they just throw them on Game Pass. I think that is an amazing value. I think there's plenty of people that probably do that. I certainly do not own a Series S because I don't want to play games with any sort of diminished performance, so I got the Series X, and I typically like to put things on performance mode because I like frames per second more than anything. That's typically how I operate. Every gamer is different, right? Every gamer has different value structure. So I could see tons of people seeing this. I don't necessarily know if people are looking at the Xbox Series X and saying, oh, I really want to get over there because of Game Pass. I don't know if Game Pass is a selling point for the console, and I don't know if that bodes well for Xbox. I don't necessarily know if you want Game Pass to be the selling point of the console. You want games to be the selling point of the console. This is one of the reasons that Microsoft wants ABK. I think they realize they don't have a robust game offering to convince people to come over. They've all but admitted that in some of the documents in Brazil. They say here, I'm already paying for it. What's a few more dollars a month for access to such a great library of games? I say this as a former PlayStation Plus subscriber. Game Pass simply has better games. This is subjective. This is completely not something you could substantiate. This is just pure opinion. Now, to you, you could be right for yourself. Game Pass may have better games for you, but for somebody else, PlayStation Plus could be an absolute bargain. Like, if you're a late adopter to PS5, you can play games like Horizon Forbidden West. You can play the updated versions of like Ghost of Tsushima and other games that have now been updated. So if you're a late adopter to PS5, PS Plus holds a lot more value for you. Now for me, I buy games as soon as they come out. So PlayStation Plus primarily is helpful for me because of the game trials on Premium, and that's mainly as a content creator. That's totally subjective to my life situation, right? Somebody else might look at Game Pass and say, bro, Game Pass is phenomenal. If you've never checked out Doc Dark's content, he's sort of a late gamer, right? He's gaming later in life, and so a lot of the games on Game Pass to him are amazing. He's never seen them. He's never played them. So the value of Game Pass is going to be subjectively measured by the individual user. So to say that it simply has better games, I think just betrays a pretty significant bias here, which that's fine if that's your bias, but I think that's really slanting the opinion on Game Pass as a whole here. PlayStation exclusives are, historically, more up my alley and win more plaudits, but Game Pass allows me to try older games I actually want to play at no risk of feeling like I wasted money. But again, if you were to truly measure the comparison here, there are plenty of really great old PS5 games, well, PS games that have been updated for the PS5 that you could play. If they're more up your alley, I don't understand why you wouldn't be playing those, like Horizon Zero Dawn, the first one, and then things like Ghost of Tsushima. I don't quite understand. If those are up your alley, that those are older games, that's actually one of the things I never quite understand in the comparisons between PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass. If you're going to defend Xbox Game Pass as being great because of all the great old games, PlayStation Plus has an amazing library of great old games you can play as well. Now, I'm not going to defend the fact that, like, hey, you can't play all of them, you have to stream some of them, but some of that's because of the architecture differences and they can't just port them over. That's definitely where Xbox has a leg up with backwards compatibility, but again, if you're going to celebrate old games, there's plenty of old games on PS Plus as well. Xbox exclusives usually arrive on Game Pass day one at no extra cost. This is true. PlayStation exclusives can take over a year to hit PS Plus and may never arrive at all. This is an actual fair comparison. If that's what you're looking for, Game Pass definitely wins. Now, the cadence of games for Game Pass in 2022 leaned more heavily on indies and not quite on the AAA games, but I would say that is a 100% fair thing to say. Like, hey, if you're really wanting the big exclusives day one, Game Pass gets them and PlayStation doesn't. And that's going to be a huge win for Microsoft if the ABK deal goes through. They'll have so many titles they can always be putting on there to really say, hey, our subscription funnel is so much better. To The Verge, Microsoft actually said this, I guess they said this in an interview, that, quote, it's evaluating different marketing promotions for new members in the future, but right now it's being replaced with nothing. And again, that's fine. Like, more than likely, Microsoft's analyzing promotions that would actually convert new users because a bunch of you guys abused the heck out of this. You weren't new to Game Pass. You were gaming the system. That's really, really typically bad for an ecosystem, and it's bad for the subscription funnel because you're kind of not using it in the way that it's intended. Look, man, you want to be as frugal as you want. That's awesome. But if you want Game Pass and Microsoft to quote-unquote win, abusing a bargain like this actually incentivizes Microsoft to shut it down, which could inadvertently make it harder for new people to jump in. So you could quite honestly be damaging the very thing that you claim to support with your choices, because if you motivate the company to stop doing it, they're closing a marketing door that could bring new people into the ecosystem, as the author of this article indicated that they did. Without this hook, Microsoft will have to come up with an equally good pull for Game Pass or risk losing potential customers for not just the subscription service, but Xbox in general. I don't understand the reasoning here at all. Without the hook, they'll have to come up with an equally good pull for Game Pass. Game Pass doesn't need a hook. It is a hook. It's amazing. Like, listen, everybody tells you that, you know, that people will tell you I'm a Sony pony or a Sony channel. I've always said Game Pass is one of the greatest deals in gaming. It's an amazing value. I just don't think it's good for the mentality of the gamer. And you can see it evidenced right here. Like, apparently, the Game Pass isn't good enough in and of itself at $10 a month. Game Pass Ultimate's, I think, what, $15? Like, without the hook of $1 entrance point, it's not good enough. That, I'm telling you right there, that passive, very subtle entitlement, that's super dangerous to your ecosystem. We call it dollar menu gaming, and boy, oh boy, does it seem on full display here. It's possible that it will be succeeded by the Xbox Game Pass Friends and Family scheme, which will allow subscribers to share a subscription with up to 4 friends or family members, though it's limited to 8 unique accounts over a calendar year. Under this scheme, every month of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate would be converted into 18 days of Game Pass Friends and Family, with piecemeal tiers getting only 12 days of the same scheme per month. I mean, more than likely, the people that were gaming the system for $1 every month are likely going to look into ways to do this too and just split it with their friends, which, again, is just wholly cannibalistic. You're going to motivate Microsoft to not have good deals because you're going to abuse the snot out of them. So far, the scheme is still available in the U.S. and has been undergoing testing in Colombia and the Republic of Ireland since 2022. Assuming the scheme is expanded to the rest of the world, you'd be paying for about $5 for everything you're currently paying 3 times that price for. It's a surefire way to boost subscriber numbers and maybe even Xbox sales. That's important since Game Pass's growth has been slower than Microsoft hoped. I can't imagine why, since it's the best subscription service out there right now, even if you only have a PC. Well, I'll tell you why. I don't think that dollar deal was bringing in new people. I don't. I think it was bringing in people that were gaming the system. So, of course, the growth was slow. It's just a constant churn rate of one account leaving, and then you create a brand new account to do the dollar thing. And then there were tons of people that were gaming the system, and they were converting Xbox Live into like years of Game Pass. So, of course, it's slower than they hoped. Like, people were using the deal to not become, a genuine subscriber of Game Pass. They were doing it to get a bargain. It's not a perfect replacement by any means, and it seems that Microsoft is willing to lose money if it means potentially getting new subscribers. However, I worry that even if Friends and Family gets rolled out soon, it could get killed fairly quickly if it doesn't generate enough revenue. Yeah, if it turns into another thing that people are using to get basically like a bargain or a steal. It's no skin off my nose if a gigantic company loses money, but I want Game Pass to continue being a worthwhile service. Here's the thing, it's not about the company losing money, it's about the company losing an incentive to back something. If you abuse the system, and tons of people abuse the system, and it's not lucrative and it's not profitable, the company will feel less incentive to maintain it. So that's why the dollar deal is probably going away. It's been around for a while, but it wasn't probably doing what it needed to do. And again, they're probably doing this in anticipation of the ABK deal closing. There's only so much a company can lose before they start cutting quality of life features for its existing users to protect their profit margins. Cutting its $1 introductory offer is a sign that things could continue changing, and I can only hope it's for the better. Listen, this lines up with things that I have said. I think in June, they will be announcing changes to Game Pass. They're likely getting rid of this deal ahead of time so that they can roll out those announcements in June. There will likely be a price hike to Game Pass in the 4th quarter of this year. They'll do all that after Redfall and Starfield. They'll have a good year for Game Pass, Forza Motorsport, whenever it comes out. And I think that will empower them to then say, hey, the price needs to go up. I've continued to say a really great way for them to sort of shield themselves from criticism about the price going up is to say, oh, hey, we're going to be adding new stuff, new features, demos, trials. We've ID'd Xbox into Game Pass because ID at Xbox does game demos all of the time. That could be in addition to day-and-date titles, in addition to all the great indie titles that Game Pass already gets. Basically, what you would do is you would bolster the value of Game Pass so that the price hike seems to be attached to that. You're paying more while also getting more. So I've continued to say Game Pass and dollar menu gaming is going to be bad for their ecosystem, and we're already seeing a negative response to a dollar entrance price. And I'm telling you, the reason people are mad isn't because they signed up for it initially and then stayed on like the author of this article. It's because they were doing it every month. As always, if you like this video, hit subscribe, hit the bell button, and I'll see you in the next one.